And welcome back. This is your man Warrior, and this is another roster review. This will be for another one of my patrons. His name is kind of hard to pronounce. Basically, it's Xythen. That's how you pronounce it, Xythen. Pretty awesome. He's from the team of Return of the Schwartz. Shout out to Return of the Schwartz. They're out there kicking it. Now, Xythen he told me I could roast him. He's made some decisions that weren't so good in the last year, and this is actually a good roster review. Most of them I've done up to this point. It's like, you're doing good here, don't worry about this. There are a couple huge opportunities for Xythen, and I'm excited that we have this. This will hopefully help showcase for other people, and he wanted it public because he knows after he's made a lot of course corrections what he wants, and now he's laser focused, but this hopefully will get him to the next level on that. He is an extremely small dolphin over the last year, and by the way, he's been playing since almost the beginning of the game. He has spent under $200, so in the scheme of an entire year, that's like $10, $15 a month or something. It's not that much money, but it does help him with a little bit of things here and there, some energy or some gear, but all in all, relatively small. He does want to know about kind of the raid teams, or who he should use for Rancor, things like that. And we're going to kind of go over that briefly. That was one of his big asks, was I needed help. He needed help with raid teams. So we're going to do things just a tiny bit different than we normally do. Normally I go through and I do light side, dark side, all that. We're going to skip light side and dark side today. And I'm going to go specifically into the factions, and then we'll go over the raids as well. Now, with Xythen's arena, he is in the top 0.5 or less than a 0.5% of the top of his shard, which means he's in the top 1% of his shard. He's doing phenomenal. If you look, he's hyper focused on first order, which is awesome. He just has an affinity for first order and clones, so clones are going to be who he's focused on next, and he's got them pretty high as well. And clones and first order have just taken him by storm. That's who he's focused on. I love it. I love when you say, I'm going to do these characters regardless of what the meta says or regardless of what people say. And this is extremely viable. He's proving this team is extremely viable. If you look, he's only got 3 or 4 of them are gear 10. They're not even to gear 11. And of course, at gear 11, there's additional pieces of gear 11. So he's missing another, at least, probably 6 pieces of gear on all these characters. And yet he's still in the top 50, so that is phenomenal. This is a fun and exciting team with the rework with Kylo Ren. I would definitely, the issue with this team is there is a lot, and I mean a lot, of Zeta abilities, and you really got to get those Zeta abilities in. First Order has a Zeta ability, Kylo and Captain Phasma, she has one. I mean, there's just so many Zeta abilities on this team that you're going to be spending the next couple of months. You'll be nothing but pumping a bunch of Zetas into them. So anyway, I love the arena team. I love what you're doing here. Don't let anyone tell you to do anything different. This will definitely be a viable team. All these reworks that they're doing are making each and every faction arena viable and viable in the game. So we're going to, like I said, skip light side, dark side. I am going to jump right into your inventory, and we're going to go to the first mistake / lack / what you need to work on, and we're going to go right into it. So you asked what you need to work on for the raid teams for P3 and stuff, and I know a lot of people that use Empire team, plus you're going to want Empire for the mod battles, and then Empire is meta right now. It's really what everyone's using. So I would really recommend that you get on it with your Empire. Your Empire is sad. Xythen, I'm sorry, brother. Your Empire team is sad. Shore Trooper, you should be working on him. Darth Vader, continue to work on him. Royal Guard is a classic staple. He's a phenomenal Empire tank. TIE Fighter pilot. And then, of course, you do not, and this is the largest glaring thing, you do not have Emperor Palpatine. You've played for over a year, which means you've had 2 attempts at least at Emperor Palpatine at a minimum, a couple of times last year, I think in August and then in December or whatever it was, and you did not get him, which means that the first time he came around, your rebels were not ready, and the second time he came around, your rebels were not ready. And Emperor Palpatine is truly one of the best dark side leaders in the game, hands down. He's also Sith, which is an amazing group of characters in the game. So for your Empire, I would definitely start really chugging along and putting some energy into Empire. Now, I know you're focused on First Order, and I know you're focused on clones, and you're hyper-focused now, and so I know you're going to have to take all these suggestions with a grain of salt, but Empire are important in the game, and these are definitely characters you'll want to eventually address. That is unlocking Emperor Palpatine, getting Shore Trooper and Royal Guard leveled up, and continuing TIE Fighter Pilot and Darth Vader. Let's go ahead and move to the Geonosians, because I do see you have Sunfac, and I would continue to develop Sunfac. By the way, I see Poggle to the right. That was from an earlier time in your life when that was an important character to have for your droids. Don't worry about him anymore. Just disregard him, drop him off, and not worry about him anymore. But Sunfac, I would continue to gear level star everything him. He's going to always be a phenomenal tank. I still use Sunfac in each and every galactic war battle, so definitely for that. And then let's go to Jedi real quick. By the way, your Jawas you use in, I think you said phase 2 with your droids, and you've got them high enough, for the AAT, but you could continue to develop them there, and that was who I would use for P2. But we're going to go to Jedi because for raid teams, you really need a phase 1 Jedi raid team, and when I'm looking at your Jedi, I get a little bit confused. And when I say that, what I mean is I know Mace and Ahsoka you use in ships, and so you want to continue to level them up. But if you're a Jedi guy, and you're not, but if you were a Jedi guy and that was all you were focused on was having an OP Jedi team, then I could see you developing Plo Koon because he's got Dispel on basic. I could see you developing some other characters in here, but Eth Koth is highly developed. You must have got caught up in the the same thing that I got caught up in, which was Ugnaught and Eth Koth were going to be the best two characters in all of the AAT. They were going to solo it, the two of them, right? And that just isn't the case. So I would say just completely forget about Eth Koth. I would completely forget about Plo for you because you're not a Jedi. Now, if somebody listening to this roster review is a fanatic for Jedi, Plo is an amazing Jedi to put on your team. He has Dispel on basic. He's phenomenal. I love Plo. Instead of having like Sunfac on your team, for an all Jedi team, you could have Plo. But for you, I wouldn't worry about him. I wouldn't worry about Qui-Gon or Jedi Knight Guardian. And at this point in the game, after a year of gameplay, I kind of am afraid to even suggest to you Qui-Gon Jinn, because at this point, Qui-Gon Jinn is almost an afterthought. But he is one of the best Jedi in the game. He does have one of the best leaderships in the game, especially for Jedi. And he's just a great character with Dispel. And I use Qui-Gon in phase 1 every single time. And the other person that you would probably want is Jedi Knight Anakin, because you have Ahsoka and they work well together, and Jedi Knight Anakin is going to do amazing amount of damage in P1 for you. You really need as much high damage dealing as you can to make sure you get your 2%. And if you've got some people on your team not pulling their weight, you're going to do more like 4%. And the only way to get 4% is to have one or two kind of Jedi teams. You can have turn meter reducer teams. I've seen that. People use Tebow in phase 1 and stuff like that. You don't have Tebow. You've never developed Tebow, which is kind of surprising, again, that you've been playing for a year and haven't done that. But that's okay. So you're either going to have one or two teams that are Jedi teams, if we're not talking about turn meter reduction in phase 1 of AAT. You're going to have either a counter team, which you don't have I'm a Gun Die, and you don't have Kit Fisto leveled up, and you don't have Ayla leveled up. So your counter team is shot. So the only other team would be a high tenacity team, which you have, Barriss, who you could eventually Zeta down the road, but that's probably not going to happen soon since your First Order. And you've got Grandmaster Yoda, which could help. And surprisingly, you do have him 7-star. But the characters in here that are really, really important for that, in my opinion, would be at minimum Ayla as the lead, Jedi Knight Anakin, Qui-Gon Jinn, Ahsoka, and then Grandmaster Yoda. And so you have Ahsoka and Grandmaster Yoda, but if I was looking at yours, I would definitely get Ayla Secura up. She's OP. She's phenomenal. She can stun every single time as long as she's critting. So you're going to want to, have critical chance mods on her. But she's a phenomenal leader. She puts tenacity up. They gain, They have high resistance to all of that, and they get bonuses for that. Jedi Knight Anakin, high damage. So the number 1 and number 2 priorities here would be Ayla and Jedi Knight. And I hate to say don't do Qui-Gon, because I think you should. But if you're going to have to pick, I would say put him on the back burner to Ayla and Jedi Knight Anakin for sure. But these 3 Jedi are kind of a surprise that you don't have them worked. And again, I know you're probably going, man, he's being harsh on me. And yes, a little bit, but I'm a little blown away, but not as blown away as I am about this. So we've gone through a 6-month Rebel meta, and you have been the rebel of all rebels by not doing your rebels. Look at this sad state of affairs. Oh my goodness. So looking at this makes me sad a little bit for you, because rebels have been so crucial in so many parts of the game. They got me through every light side battle I needed to get through. I use them. You can use them in phase 2. You can use them in phase 4. I mean, they're great in phase 4. And I know right now you're using clones in phase 4, but if you had a rebel team, you could use the rebel team in phase 4 and move your clones over to phase 2, because you've been talking about, mixing and matching and stuff. So you definitely want to work on your Jedi for phase 1. Your droids and your Jawas can continue to be phase 2 if you want, but you could move them over, and then the Empire team, with your Emperor Palpatine and other Sith and stuff like Darth Vader, you're going to put them in phase 3, so you got to work on them. And then Rancor, if you ever do decide to Zeta Darth Vader, he could be a great leader. Just put some Empire and Sith with him, and you'll be able to solo the Rancor raids. So those are my suggestions. But looking at your Rebel, I mean, where were you the last 4 months in the game? You don't even have Wedge. You don't have Wedge. Lando and Wedge are missing. I don't even know how this is possible, but it is. So I would passively on the side continue to develop Rebels, and I would focus on Wedge and Lando, getting them unlocked and getting them leveled up, so you can have a Han Solo, Stormtrooper Han, Biggs, Wedge, and Lando type Rebel team, and then you could plug your Rebels into phase 4 instead of those clones, or you could have them in addition to clones in the phase 4 of the AAT raid. But I'm kind of surprised. But now this tells me why you don't have Emperor Palpatine. We knew that you didn't have him, and now I look at this and go, okay. And so when you're trying to get him, you're going to have to get Wedge. Wedge is kind of a long, grindy farm, and you're only going to have 2 or 3 weeks probably until Emperor Palpatine is back and ready to be shot again. So I'm not sure if you'll be ready by then, but you do have 4, your Biggs, Admiral, Storm, and Han on the top 4 that are already at 5-star or higher. So you could unlock him if you can just get one more character to 5-star. So if my one character suggestion for Rebels would be farm Wedge to 5-star, gear him up to gear 8 or 7 at least, and get Biggs and Admiral to gear 7, and then you should be able to get your EP, and then you can slowly start working on him. Emperor Palpatine is easy to gear. He's once you have him, he's not hard at all. He's going to be a phenomenal leader. So definitely kind of surprised by your Jedi a little, surprised by your Rebels a little, surprised by your Empire a little, and the reason is those are kind of 3 of the 4 top meta teams that are out there. And then let's go to Scoundrels. And for Scoundrels, you do have Han Solo, Boba Fett, Stormtrooper, and IG. Those are the 4 top I would recommend. The 5th was Lando, that's missing from your Rebel squad. I would replace Cad Bane with Lando. I think Lando is more usable and more viable, especially in these types of events where you'll use him. But if you're a Cad Bane fan, you could continue with Cad Bane. But if you're going to do that, then you need to at least start gearing him up a little higher than where you have him. But I think Lando would be a better bet for this slot. Now let's go ahead and go over, now that we've talked about the raids and your teams, let's go ahead and go over to who overall you've got that you probably should steer clear of. So in the top 3 rows, I see IG Magna Guard. I'd kind of bail on him. Poggle, I see him in the bottom left. I would bail on him. I see you working B2 Battle Droid. That's excellent. That's one I would actually really fast track up. He's going to be a amazing character at certain times when you're facing certain teams where you have to have buff immunity, such as the Barriss Zeta teams or the General Kenobi teams. You're going to have a B2 there. Let's see. You're not super focused on Sith, so I wouldn't worry too much right now about Savage. I wouldn't put much more energy at all into Eth Koth or Cad Bane or Plo or the resistance that you have. You don't have many resistance. And I would continue to work Darth Vader and Stormtrooper Han, TIE Fighter Pilot and Sun Fac. I would not worry about, Obi-Wan, Finn, Chewie, or Talia, or Geospy, or any of these down here. Biggs, I would level up. Royal Guard, I would level up. I wouldn't worry about the next row except for maybe Qui-Gon Jinn, but more importantly, Jedi Knight Anakin, I definitely would. If you're ever wanting to use Tebow, you should get him. If not, disregard him and move on to the next row, which is Ayla Secura and Shore Trooper. I would definitely focus on those two, Ayla and Shore. Shore is extremely viable even at 3 stars, and the auto taunt, because you don't have bays, is going to be imperative at times when you face certain teams that you need an auto taunt at times. And so to be able to move him in at times and pull him out is critical. Now I know you're going again First Order and clones, so all these suggestions, of course, are the characters that you're going to work on the side, because we know that you're going to go First Order and then you're going to go clones. But through that, hopefully this is going to get you guided to who you should be working on best in there. Now let's move over to your ships. All right, so you are also using Mace Windu's Endurance, and that is who I would continue to level up as Mace. And as far as ships, because of that, you're using your clones, which your clones are high. So very similar to the last roster review that I did of Bibbidi, Farshem, DF 3404, you've got a very similar kind of build. Now, you do have the First Order ship, and I'll tell you, normally $40 for a ship and a few shards of characters wasn't that good of a deal. But for you doing First Order, that was actually an awesome move for you, because this is a pretty cool ship, and while it's traditionally underpowered for most, it's probably not for you because you have your First Order so high. So that's exciting that you have him. You do have him in the last slot, and I think if it was me, just because I paid for him and he's got so much utility, and you know that Mace is going to keep him alive for a little bit longer than other ships, I'd probably bring him out and put him in the top first 5. That would be fun and exciting. But I do know that you've got a lot of Republic, and you've got kind of the first 5, and you're working on mostly Republic ships. So I get where you're going with that. But the one ship that's in the back, that's, I guess he's your heavy hitter, is the 5s, Umbar and Starfighter. I'd probably switch him out for something that is going to come in and maybe do a little bit more damage, either something that's target locked that can do a lot of damage, like First Order. When someone's target locked, he comes in and does a ton of damage. Plus, First Order can apply target lock. Now, the only real thing I see out there that you have that will apply target lock is Rex. Rex on his basic has a chance to apply target lock, but you need more, because a lot of abilities are unlocked with target lock. You really want to paint the other team with target lock to really grow in this, and your fleet power is high at 124,000 almost. So, having First Order out there with the TIE Fighter pilot, both of those ships are going to give you that ability to paint the opposing team. And every time they miss your TIE Fighter pilot, you're going to get on that evasion, which he does, you're going to get more turn meter to your endurance, which with an endurance ship, is critical to speed him up. So that way he gets that immunity for 1 round for all your ships. So those are my thoughts on there. You do have Poe. You have Poe's ship, although Poe's pretty low gear for you, and you're going to have to gear him up if you're going to use his ship. But he could be an alternate going in the background on the bottom 3 as well. If we look at your ships overall, we're looking at like Jedi Consular, First Order TIE Fighter, Ahsoka clone. I see where you're going with the characters that you have. You're doing a good job using those ships. The Resistance X-Wing, the Imperial TIE Fighter, you may want to work those too because they play into the hand that you're working on. If you decide to take my advice on Sunfac and bring him up in gear, his ship will become one of the most powerful ships you have, and he does when he's taunting. When he returns fire, he stuns, which is really pretty cool if they're buffed. And so I would definitely consider bringing Sunfac in because he's a great tank. Now, I know you don't have many tanks because your ship passes the taunt around, but there's that thought as well. Just Sunfac's a great alternative. And then the last, you have the TIE Reaper, but you don't really have the characters leveled up for it. So that's I'm sure you were trying to get shards for the TIE Advanced for Darth Vader's ship and ended up getting screwed on that and got 4 TIE Advanced and then got the TIE Reaper unlocked. That's what happened to most people. I see that you don't have the Scimitar or Darth Maul, and that is probably, of all the ships, of all the characters that you don't have, if I was going to pick the one character of the month to really get and focus on, it would be Darth Maul. And this is why. He is awesome in Arena. He's awesome in areas of the raid. He's awesome in the Rancor too, because he's a Sith, so he can take away turn meter and whatnot. His ship is amazing, especially under Endurance, where he can stealth and put Retribution on the other ship. And since stealth is now fixed, or at least hopefully stealth in ships is fixed as well, that means that you're going to be able to throw the taunt on that one character who has Retribution. So that would be a great combination for Endurance. And he's just fun. His ship is fun. And he's been reworked, and he's a great character. So if you were going to pick one character to play and to level up and get his ship and all of that, it would be that. And my last suggestion is I know you've got your Zeta materials unlocked, so you can purchase those, and there's a huge push to try and buy those, every couple of days out of ships. My suggestion would be, until you get your ships where you want them, and until you farm the characters you'd like to farm, give up on those Zeta and let the Zeta flow a little slower through the event. Since you get to do the event a couple of times a week, just collect a couple a week doing that. I know it's a little bit slower, but I would divide your currency up and get some ships and some ship shards, and I would get some character and character shards each and every day, maybe saving a little on the side occasionally. But your ships are really important. You can see that because they're going to help you with getting the things you need, and your characters you can unlock from ships are absolutely amazing. So those are my 2 cents. I hope that everybody out there has learned something from Xythen's year of experience, from his highs and his lows. He's doing a phenomenal job now. He's laser focused. He's got a great First Order team and clone team that he's working on, but he definitely wants to reach out and work on his Empire, a couple of his Jedi, and definitely the Rebels, because Emperor Palpatine's coming back around in March. So what do you guys think? Tell Xythen in the comments down below. As always, keep your gaming on. Warrior out.